Good morning, Veritas. Today is Tuesday, May 26th, 2020. I hope everybody had a nice Memorial Day weekend. It's finally officially summer, so I hope you had a nice weekend and enjoyed the weather. Let's get started today with Tuesday's assignment. So look in your Google Classroom for Tuesday, May 26th, 2020. Here are the first three problems, and then we'll have an all-star challenge problem that I'll go over in a few minutes. Okay, number one, solve the following inequalities using the correct symbol, less than, greater than, or equal to. So I've talked about this a lot. You're going to see words on tests that you don't know what they mean, and your job is to figure out using some other clues what it is you need to do. So you're going to be using these symbols. So an inequality just means you're basically going to say which one is bigger or less than or equal to the other one. All right, so we're going to use these symbols. Okay, so number A, 0.08 or 0.3. So I made a chart here, a place value chart. I have the ones place, then the decimal point. Then we have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So that's really what we're going to be working with today. So let's put in A, 0.08 would be 0 tenths and 8 hundredths. Or 0.3 would be a 3 in the tenths place. So since if you just look at the tenths place, the biggest place, it's bigger than the hundredths place, right? Every time you go left is 10 times bigger. So the hundredths are 10 times bigger than the thousandths. The tenths are 10 times bigger than the hundredths. The ones are 10 times bigger than the tenths. So this place is bigger than the hundredths place. So we look here first. We have 0 tenths or 3 tenths. So since 0 tenths is less than 3 tenths, even though this has 2 digits here, this is in a smaller place value. So we could look at this as 8 hundredths, and that's 3 tenths. So there are no hundredths. We could put a 0 there to hold the hundredths place. Now, if you read it to the hundredths place, we have 8 hundredths or 30 hundredths. And again, 30 hundredths is bigger than 8 hundredths. Just like if you looked at the tenths place, 3 tenths is bigger than 0 tenths. So that's kind of two different ways to show you that 3 tenths is greater. So 8 hundredths is less than 3 tenths. You could just look at the tenths place and say, okay, 3 tenths is bigger than 0 tenths. Or you could look at them both in the hundredths place, put a 0 here, 30 hundredths is greater than 8 hundredths. Okay, now let's go to B. We have 0.6, so 6 tenths, a 6 in the tenths place. Or we have 6 times 1 tenth, which would be a 6 in the tenths place. So 6 times 1 tenth is 6 tenths. So now we're looking at these two, 6 tenths or 6 tenths. Those ones are equal. So 6 tenths is equal to 6 times 1 tenth. It's a 6 in the tenths place. Okay, let me just make these a little longer. Okay, let's go to C. 0.206 or 206 thousandths, because that's the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths place. And since it lands in the thousandths place, we're going to read it as 206 thousandths. And this is 4 tenths, because it lands in the tenths place. So let's go to the chart. We have 206 thousandths, 2 tenths, 0 hundredths, 6 thousandths. Or we have 4 tenths, which is just a 4 in the tenths place. So again, we can just look at this biggest spot, the biggest place value spot here. Tenths are bigger than hundredths or thousandths. So if we just look here, that's 2 tenths and that's 4 tenths. So since 4 is more than 2, 4 tenths is going to be greater. Okay? Or we could read them so that they both go to the same place value. 206 thousandths, because it lands in the thousandths place. If this goes to the thousandths place, we're going to just have to hold the hundredths and the thousandths with zeros. That's 400 thousandths or 206 thousandths. 400 is bigger than 206, and they go to the same place value. So 400 thousandths is more than 206 thousandths. Okay, so whichever way you do it, 206 thousandths is less than 4 tenths. You can just look to this place value. 2 is less than 4. Or you could write this so that it goes to the same place value as the other one. 206 thousandths is less than 400 thousandths. And last one, D, we have 0.14 or 14 hundredths. There's 1 tenth and there's 4 hundredths. 0.14, 14 hundredths, because it lands in the hundredths place. or 0.068 or 68 thousandths because it lands in the thousandths place, 0.068. So we're comparing these two. This one has 1/10 and this one has 0/10. And since that's the biggest place value, tenths are larger than hundredths and they're larger than thousandths. So all we got to do is look here and compare them. 1 is more than 0. So 0.14 is going to be greater than 0.068. We can look at the biggest place value. So if there were more here, you would look at the biggest place value first to compare them. So since this is the biggest place value that we have, 1 is more than 0. So this one is going to be bigger. If we look at them just to the hundredths, that's 14 hundredths, and that's only 6 hundredths. So 14 hundredths, again, is more than 6 hundredths. If we look at them to the same place value of the thousandth, that's 140 thousandths, and that's 68 thousandths. And 140 is more than 68. So any of those ways that you look at this, 0.14 is greater than 0.068. Okay, those were tough. That took a while. Give yourself some snaps. Nice job. Those shouldn't actually be super tough. Some of them might be because I tried to make them tricky. But by this time of the year, you guys should be pretty solid with those. So please let me know if you got any of those wrong, because you should be getting pretty good at those by now. All right, give yourself some snaps. Nice work. And let's quickly move on to number 2. Number 2, which of the following expressions are equivalent? So you might not know what an expression is, but these are expressions because they're following, right? Which of the following expressions, so it's telling you that these are expressions, are equivalent. So this is a word you need to know. Equivalent sounds like equal. Which ones are equal? So we're going to choose 2, and to me that's the most important thing. That's where kids are going to get this wrong. You need to choose 2. So I'm going to write that as big as I can, because if I get excited when I find the first right answer and I choose only 1, I get 0 points. You don't get half credit for these types of problems. If it says choose 2 and you only choose 1, even if it's right, you don't get credit for it. So we got to be real careful with these choose 2 ones. See how I really bring that out to my eyes? I'm going to even write it on my answer sheet over here. Choose 2, so I don't forget. Okay, so which ones are equal? So again, we have a little bit of this. Maybe I should use this chart again from the other side. So I'm just going to kind of continue this chart. Okay, so we have 2 hundredths. Be careful. Yes, I tried to trick you. So we have a 2. Let me use the red pen. We have a 2 in the hundredths place. 2 times 100th is 2 in the hundredths place. Plus 1 times 1/10. So I did try to trick you. I tried to see who was going to put the 2 in the tenths place and the 1 in the hundredths place. The 1 is 1/10, so the 1 goes in the tenths place. So this one here is actually 0.12. It's 12 hundredths. So I'm just going to write that here next to it. 0.12 is A. Now let's go to B. 2 tenths. 2 times 1/10 is a 2 in the tenths place. Then we have plus 1 times 1/10. So that's another 1 in the tenths place. So we're actually going to cross that off. And since we had 2 in the tenths place plus 1 more in the tenths place, now we actually have 3 in the tenths place. So that's it. 2 times 1/10. 1 times 1/10. Again, that's 2 plus 1/10. 2 tenths plus 1/10 is 3 tenths. So this one is 0.3. We're trying to find which 2 are equal. So far, those are not equal. We just have 0.3 here. Okay. Now we have 0.21. So we have not seen that one yet. So that one's not right. And then 0.12, which is the same thing as A. So we need to find 2 that are equivalent. We have 0.12, 0.3, 0.21, or 0.12. So A is 0.12, and D is 0.12. 12 hundredths, 12 hundredths. So A and D are equivalent. It says to choose 2, so we got to make sure I chose 2. And I did. I got A and D. I chose 2, so see how I just give myself a few different ways to make sure that I don't forget to choose 2. So we have A and D are equivalent for those ones. You got that? Good job. Give yourself some snaps. Nice work. Okay, last one, number 3. Find the quotient of 4,378 and 5. So you need to know what quotient is. The quotient is the answer to a division problem. So we are finding the answer to a division problem. We are going to divide 4,378, and we're going to divide that by 5. Let's make sure we got the right numbers. 4,378 divided by 5. We're finding the quotient, so we are dividing. So we're in good shape. Okay? So what we're going to do is we have 4,378, we'll say M&Ms. We have 4,378 M&Ms. We're breaking them into 5 equal groups. That's what we're doing here with division. Those 5 groups have got to be equal groups. That's what division is. We're making 5 equal groups. So every one of these groups has to be equal. Okay? So we're going to take 4,000 and break it into 5 equal groups. But we can't do that because if you put 1,000 into each of these groups, we don't have 1,000 for this group. So we can't do any thousands in this group because then they wouldn't be equal groups. So we're going to put a 0 over the thousands place. We can't put 1,000 into each group because we don't have 5,000. We only have 4. So now we're going to use what we know about place value. 4,000 is the same as 40 hundredths because these are 10 times bigger than the hundredths place. So 4 of these is really 4 times 10, which is 40 hundredths. Plus the 3 hundredths that we have here, we can look at this as 43 hundredths because this is the hundredths place. So if we had 43 hundredths and we were breaking those into 5 equal groups, we could put 8 hundredths into each group. So far we have an 8 here. It can't be 900 because 900 times 5 or 9 hundredths times 5 would be 45 hundredths, and we only have 43 hundredths. So we can only put 800 in each of those groups so far. So then we multiply. 8 times 5 is 40 hundredths. 43 minus 40, we have 3 hundredths left that didn't go into these groups yet. So we're still going to take it and we're going to add it with the tens. So now we'll bring down these 7 tens. So we have the 3 hundredths, which are 30 tens, plus the 7 tens here makes 37 tens. So what number times 5 gets you to 37? How many tens can we put into these groups? So if we put 8, that would be 40. We don't have that much. So we're going to put 7 tens into each group, which is 70. So we're going to put 70 into each of those groups. So 7 times 5 is 35 tens. So we still have 2 tens when we subtracted that we can't put into these 2 groups. We can't put a 10 and a 10 here because then the groups wouldn't be equal. So we're going to take those 2 tens and we're going to add them with the 8 ones. Now we have 28 ones that we're trying to divide into 5 equal groups. So we can put 5 of those into each group, Putting 5 into each group. 5 times 5 are 25, so we still have 3 that we weren't able to put into these groups. And if I put 1 here and 1 here and 1 here, they would not be equal groups. So we can't do that. The 3 is our remainder. It's going to become the numerator of our fraction. And the divisor, the number we divided by, is going to become the denominator of our fraction. So the answer is 875 remainder 3, or 875 and 3/5 is even more accurate. 875 and 3/5, or 875 remainder 3. Either one of those answers works because it doesn't tell you here. You know, sometimes it tells you have to write it as a mixed number, then you'd have to write it like this. It doesn't say it, it just says find the quotient. So it's 875 and 3/5, or 875 with a remainder of 3. Okay, but the reason why I put it as 3/5 is because if you had this remaining 3, let me draw out 3 holes. And if you were going to break those into 5 equal groups, right? We're going to break them all into 5 equal groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we were going to take these 3 holes, right? 1, 2, and 3, those remaining ones, and break them all into 5 groups, right? We could put 1 of these into each group. Then we could put 1 of those into each group, and 1 of those into each group. So we'd put 1/5 from this group into each one, 1/5 from this group into each one, and 1/5 from this group into each one, which is a total of 3/5 into each group. We'll put 1/5 into this group, 1/5 into this group, that's 2/5, and 1/5 into this group, that's 3/5. Then we're going to do the same thing for each one of these, and then that would get rid of these 3 holes. So we use them all up by breaking them into fifths and putting 3/5 into each of those groups. So the answer is 875 3/5. Okay, lots of work today. Look at that worksheet. Give yourself some snaps. Nice work, everybody. I hope you have a nice day, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Try that challenge problem because it's coming out next. All right, have a great day. Bye.